Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Highly Inspired. I'm Ella.
I'm Jordan.
Hey, guys. So last week we had a failed attempt, as you know, to show you our little studio,
The
the
visuals.
visuals. So this is going to be our official first episode on YouTube, and we have a camera now that works.
Yes.
So,
Hello, YouTube. We're
hey,
very
guys.
excited to have this. It's a new phase. But this is where it's always been in our kitchen, just trying to
This
have some
is
conversation, talk about stuff, and this is kind of where it all started. So we're excited. This week we have kind of a hodgepodge of topics that we want to talk about, and pretty much everything falls under the category of big tech and data, and an amazing documentary that we just watched the other night, which was The Social Dilemma on Netflix. It's only been out for a few days, and just after watching it, I think that it really inspired us to kind of do some external research and I don't know, kind of discuss it outside of just watching something because I think that people really respond to watching a documentary like that, which is
Mhm.
so all inclusive of a lot of things. But they don't necessarily get into a ton of stats or like a ton of little intricacies or like psychology or this or that in terms of casual real life human interaction. So they touched on it, but yeah, I think that talking about it in a more long form format is kind of perfect
Yeah,
for.
no, it was a great documentary. I recommend it to anyone who hasn't heard of it yet or hasn't seen it. It basically just to give a brief synopsis without giving anything away. It had mainly speakers that were um, past workers or even like presidents of major tech companies that we all are familiar with, mainly social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. I mean, the
Mhm.
list really continues. Google. And then it had a mix of psychologists as well, one of them being Jonathan Haidt, who we've talked about before on this podcast, and I
Mhm.
really recommend looking into his book, The Coddling of the American Mind.
Mhm.
And Jordan and I, aside from this, this film, we had been talking a lot about avatars and kind of your digital persona, and we did an episode on that. And that's one element of it, but like these companies, they really do see you as a digital entity and you to just be fully manipulated by them as puppets essentially.
Yeah, so I think with talking about social media and talking about big tech, there's all these little um, innuendos or titles that people use to explain what's going on. The puppeteer
Mhm.
comparison is a really good one. The ether is a really good one, posting off into the ether. Where is your data going? Where exactly is it being stored? Like, I think a lot of
Ether.
people, yes, title of of this episode is Into the Ether.
Yep.
Very overarching. We were trying to figure out how we could encapsulate everything about this because it's our world right now,
Mhm.
and it has grown so much in the past decade.
Yeah.
And I think that that documentary really highlighted some pretty alarming statistics on
Yeah.
how fast it has exponentially increased in terms of how much is out there. And yeah, we actually pulled some screenshots. We'll post them for you guys. They were
Yeah.
really cool.
And what Jordan's kind of describing is in this film there was, which we'll share the screenshot with you, but I just am having the visual in my head, and it's basically this chart, and you're seeing from 1940, which is when 1950 when you start seeing technology kind of emerge in this digital realm, all the way to 2020, and you're seeing this graph, and it's going very very slow, very very slow, almost like this, and then 2010 it goes straight up.
Yeah.
I think they said it was like 100 trillion
No,
percent.
a hundred quadrillion.
Okay, even more.
Something that we can't even wrap our heads around
Yeah.
how much. And that actually was like less than a decade.
And which is crazy because when you think about like your sibling or someone that's only a few years younger than you, even like in college, I've met now freshmen and sophomores now in college, and I'm a senior, and I already can see so many differences in them, and I didn't feel like when I was a freshman I had that many differences from seniors, and I kind of am tying it now back to this graph that we saw where around 2010 everything shifted so fast. Like I remember
Yeah.
growing up and we only had one house like computer laptop, and I remember like I didn't even grow up with cable until I was 8, and then I remember even just seeing, like, a printer for the first time, like, in my house, and I remember, like, going on Webkins at my
Yeah.
dad's office and that being a really big deal that I got to go to on Webkins, like, only a few times a week, and now, like you could go on your phone all the time on Instagram, and you're what, 10 years old? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, just the sky is the limit, and
Yeah.
it's even more instantaneous than that, where you had to get onto a desktop computer and go through all these passwords and then get on Webkins, where now it's just your face opens your
I
phone,
know.
and then you click one button, and even if you don't wanna type, you can just speak into Siri.
Well, and at least with Webkins, I mean, not to go, like, off track, but at least you didn't have notifications.
I know,
Like,
yeah.
at least you didn't have it, like, constantly at you all the time, like and it was fun and innocent. That's another thing that the documentary brought up that I'd never really realized is before, 2010, the internet we grew up with, the YouTube we first were exposed to was so innocent. It was cat videos and home videos and
Oh, I had probably 5 or 6 YouTube channels that I was subscribed to, but it was like I was religiously watching them because
Yeah,
that was it.
yeah,
Just the amount of content that you could look at was not even a fraction of what we have
yeah.
today.
Do you remember Marcel the show?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And then just like random viral videos like Charlie bit my finger and that type of
yeah.
thing. Those were so great. And I remember those even more because it was so special that, like, those types of videos when there wasn't as much
You'd
content,
watch
like,
it over and over
you
again.
watch it like, I can't remember the last time I watched a YouTube video, like, twice,
That's a good point.
even a short one.
Well, you barely have enough time to, like, keep up with the things that you wanna keep up with, let alone discover new things because it's like, "Okay, I already know people I'm subscribed to on YouTube," whatever, like, it's already a lot to, like, just watch all the updates for that in one day.
It's
It's
exhausting.
really exhausting. Get up to date with Twitter, get up to date with Instagram. I mean, when you compile all these things, it's several hours out of your day, and, I mean, humans just aren't meant for that, and it's crazy because, especially with COVID, I feel like we're always on our screens, like, between class and whatever, and I was talking to my friend, and he was saying, "I feel like a zombie." Like, I just feel like I go from, like, screen to screen, and I don't even know what I'm consuming or
That's what I
why.
felt like this summer, especially with, like, full online class and not being really even able to do anything. Now it's still just as bad, and it's probably gonna get worse. But yeah, actually, is there a word, now that you bring that up, about, feeling like you have to stay up to date with everything?
Mhm.
And if you're subscribed to YouTube channels or are following so and so many people on Twitter that you have to see every single thing? Like, I wonder if that's
There probably is a word for it, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, maybe it's a sense of, like, FOMO, but that's interesting you bring that up
yeah.
because something that I noticed was part of the reason why we have such a hard time, like, the kind of finding common like just finding things in common with our peers is because there's so much content out there is that we don't have a common culture. If you think
Yeah.
about Michael Jackson, the Beatles, etc., like everyone was obsessed with these things. Now
Mhm.
everything is so niche and it's niche with music, it's niche with movies, etc. Like how do you even make friends with someone when you don't have anything in common? And that was something the documentary brought up is that these algorithms are trying to get it so that you are seeing a completely different news story than I am. Like when you type in climate change is, you and I will have different pop-up
Yeah,
words based
yeah.
off of our searches, our thinking, and our
I tested
geographical
it, and it
location.
actually we
Yeah.
probably could have both tested it, like,
Yeah.
but since we're in the same area, it would have come up with the same thing. Whereas if we were in Arizona, it could have came up with a completely different search result
Yeah.
or, like, filler, whatever
Mhm.
those things are called.
Yeah.
That was scary. I had never seen that before.
No. I mean, I figured as much, but I didn't realize how much it was tied to your, like, psychology and stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So, I found a word that kind of it kind of concludes what that feeling is of it's not the obligation to follow what people
Mhm.
are doing or like what people are posting, but it's sort of being exposed to so much and not knowing how to draw your feelings from it. And this is, I think, a big contributor to why the amount of like mental health
Mhm.
just crises are going on. So what it's called is instant digital empathy, which
Interesting.
is where, say, Becky's in Nantucket and she's at the beach, like, you see her photos, and then, someone's in China and they're doing this or that, or one photo, it's someone super happy on vacation with their family, and then the next photo is a friend whose cat just died.
Mhm.
So you've got just this insane roller coaster of some photos are super happy, some are neutral, some are sad. Like, I don't think that we were necessarily evolved to have all of these conflicting emotional images, videos, words that are, there's no pattern, you
Mhm.
know? And I don't think social media was built to categorize based off of emotion. It was built to categorize what will engage us the most.
That's really
So
interesting.
maybe that's kind of another, like, remember how we were talking about the other day that we do like drama, we like some sort of challenge that gets us to keep coming back to see those conflicting emotional
Mhm.
images. But then when we do, I don't know if it's necessarily giving some people the best outcome, and they might not even know. It's like a
Yeah.
subconscious, like, inner battle with your psyche and emotion, I guess.
No, that's really interesting. I never thought about that before. I'd never thought about the fact that, like, you do see so many different emotions on any feed that you're going through. And
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not evolved for that. We're not evolved for so many things with social media. We're not evolved to have thousands of interactions a day with people, or the fact that we are trying to seek approval from every follower that you have. We are not evolved to take that in. The most we
Mhm.
could do is maybe, like, okay, let's say you're out at a party and you're wearing an outfit. Probably the most compliments I would maybe expect to get is like 1 to 3, right? Like, that's pretty normal if you're
Mhm.
at a party. But with social media, I mean, these young girls, and I mean, I'm young too, but, like, even, like, a few years younger, we're talking 200 comments on a normal person's Instagram. This is not someone who's famous, whatever. Like, it
Like,
is,
teenage
a and
girl,
that's
average.
the expectation.
Yeah.
Like,
And
there's
if you
no
get under that, when that's your norm, it can instantly put you in a
it's
deficit where you're like, "What the heck? I hate social media. I'm never posting again."
Yeah, and if you think about, like, I mean, the percentage of the people that might see that post, of course someone's not gonna like your outfit on there. Of course someone's, if you put an idea out there, isn't gonna agree with your idea. You're exposing that image, that idea, whatever it is on social media, to a wider range of people, and it's not as selective as when you share something personal self one to one or in a group setting in person,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know?
I read something about how it kind of ties back to tribalism,
Mhm.
where, like, ancient, where your acceptance and how you felt good about yourself had everything to do with if you went out and hunted and then brought back your findings and then showed it to your tribe. And we're
Mhm.
talking a small, small amount of people,
Yeah.
not the entire world. So normally a tribe would be composed of like 45 to 60 people. And so then in that one instantaneous moment, you get the affirmation and the
Mhm.
celebration and the reward and whatever, the positive reinforcement, and then you move on to the next time and then you do it. So posting is kind of like that,
Yeah.
where you have this photo where there's so many things that you are appreciative of and want to, I guess, kind of show the world, but there's just no way that you're going to get that entire scale of positive reinforcement
Mhm.
from everybody. Like, we're that's just not
Yeah.
possible.
No, you brought up some really interesting words in what you're saying, positive reinforcement, evolution. And I think that ties into the dopamine thing, which we've talked about, the fact that we have evolved. The reason why, like, we are incentivized to do good things, and one of that is to, like, make social interactions, whether it's for reproduction or just our own happiness, goes all the way back to what you're talking about, tribalism, evolution, etc.
Hmm.
And the fact that we were evolved to get these. I was reading this article from, I believe it was an ex Facebook, uh, yeah, former VP of the growth of user growth of Facebook, and she was speaking at Harvard, and she was
She wasn't in the doc, was she?
no, she wasn't.
No.
This is a
Okay.
separate article, and she was basically explaining that with the dopamine, that's the same thing that's being triggered with social media, and it goes all the way back to, like, tribal times when you were trying to meet people and try to get
Yeah.
their approval, and
Yeah.
now we're getting just
That was the
dopamine.
incentive.
Yeah, but it was
Mhm.
supposed to be in small, small doses, and it's supposed to incentivize you to do things like love people and get into relationships and that sort of thing, and it's getting substituted by social media on overload.
Yeah, and honestly, for back in those times when maybe you didn't get that much of a dopamine rush every day, so not posting every day, it had to be like once a month you got that true reward from it. It
Mhm.
was probably even more of like a dopamine flush than just like posting on social media. I have a lot of terms that I found that I didn't even know existed. There were some that I took from the doc. One was their persuasive technology. So there's
Mhm.
all these different in these companies, say Facebook, Google, YouTube. Like, okay, they're all kind of connected in a way, but they all have their own teams that run their marketing and actual data fluctuations on the platform. And so within those teams, they also have separate departments that manage certain engagement factors. And here, let me find it. There are these 3 goals that they have in these teams that are like the most important. First is engagement goal to keep current users actively engaged with the platform. Second is growth goal, incentivize not only the users, but for them to then go on to their friends and peers to get them on there or to look at it or
Mhm.
tagged you in a post, go check it out, that type
Yeah.
of thing. And then the last one is the advertising goal, which pretty much, if you really look at it, whether you pay for YouTube Premium or some sort of premium plan, every single one of these platforms makes a massive amount of money off of selling ads for other companies.
Yeah, and that point, I mean, the
I think that
advertising.
might be the most important.
Yeah, the advertising one is the scariest one, and basically what this documentary really brought to light, which I had never seen it in this light before, is that we are the product. And they basically state, and this is such a basic concept. I should have been aware of this, but if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. And that is what.
So if it's free, it's not free.
No, and obviously I do know that, and I knew that, like, okay, advertisings are a thing, like they're taking your data, etc. I understand all of that, but to actually internalize, I am a product, that is very dehumanizing if you
Mhm.
really think about it.
Mhm.
Like every person on this planet that has a smartphone, that has access to the internet, that uses social media, etc. Like
Yeah.
you're being used as a product and you don't get any benefit except that you get to like see other people's posts.
So to get more into that, a sub branch of us being the product,
Mhm.
how would you explain that
What do you mean?
dynamic? Like what makes us the product?
Okay. I would say what makes us the product is that, okay, even if you are paying for, I guess if you pay for YouTube Premium, do you not get ads?
Um, you get ads from the creator if they have, I don't know, a brand deal
Mm,
with a company, but it's not those pre-video or
okay.
mid-roll ads that like,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm not sure how that side of it works, but anything that's free that you aren't paying a premium for, you're basically agreeing to their terms and services, right? Which is,
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
effect, they're able to use your data without limitations, and they're able to advertise you without limitations. So it goes either
They
it
can
go
put you wherever.
yeah, yeah, and they can put all of your information to get advertisements that best fit you.
Mhm.
And like they basically own all of your actions and thoughts and movements within the realm of the internet. It's basically your digital avatar. They have control of that. And you don't get
Yeah.
any sort of commission for giving them that information. Like if I was a real estate agent and I'm brokering the deal between the buyer and the seller, I get a commission in that because I brought both of the parties to the table, and we exchanged all information, and every person in that party is benefiting. But in this, there's a whole party of people that aren't getting, part of some monetary value in
Yeah,
there.
so we're the connector if you think about
Yeah.
it. Like these platforms for in sort of an advertising sense, like we are the connector of the platform is using us to get to these other companies that are paying them to get us there.
Mhm.
So it's like this four-way triangle.
Yeah.
And like the company obviously is able to orchestrate whatever, and they have all of our data, but in an avatar sense. And I think that avatar word is insanely, I don't know, I feel like that
Mhm.
encapsulates a lot because it relates to the puppeteer thing. It relates to how they're not only managing what our activities are, but they also have access to pretty valuable information that relates to us, like how to
Mhm.
contact us, where we may live, how old we are, like what our personality types are. Like the people that worked for these companies that were in the social dilemma completely confirmed that,
Mhm.
like how they are able to get us to engage more on these sites is they're able to completely predict what our actions are from knowing what our personality types are and just from overall like knowing us.
Yeah.
And it's really scary how just from seeing how long we look at a post, how long we are on the site each day, the accounts we follow, the videos we typically watch, like it's so crazy how just from that they're able to sort of understand us
Mhm.
in the real world, even though it's not. So it's
And they weren't hiding that. I mean, these people that were coming on this movie, and anytime I've looked at an article that is someone who formerly worked at a tech company and now has left that tech company is explaining their experience, they all say, "I knowingly did this. I created this algorithm. I created this monetization plan, whatever it is, and I knew it
mhm,
was bad, and I did it
mhm,
anyway. And now
mhm.
I feel guilty, and I quit." And I'm trying to fix my mistake, but it's probably too late. That is the narrative that we heard from every single person that was on that documentary. That
Yeah.
like there that was the main theme.
I really liked that they did that though. I have a lot of respect for the people who went on and did that because they did not hold back. Like
No.
that must have taken a lot of courage for people like that were behind the scenes that had the power and knew that they could continue to gain more power. I feel like it takes a lot of courage to give up that power just for the sake of ethics
Mhm.
and for the good of the people that you are taking it from,
Yeah.
you know? And so for them to move on and they probably are working in jobs that are similar, although maybe not exactly what they were doing before, not at such massive companies, or starting their own companies. A lot of them are kind of doing their own thing to kind
Mhm.
of combat these issues that we're facing. And I just respect that a lot. And just how they phrase things. Like I wrote down a couple quotes, but um, I loved it.
Yeah. Do you
Absolutely
think
loved it.
that if you had been born even like 5 years later, you would have a different brain that you do now because of social media and because of the fact specifically that they brought up that social media does have this brainwashing aspect to it where you could literally live with people in your same household and you guys have all different sources of news and information and be divisive
Hmm.
within your own family. Like you could be a 15-year-old kid and think see the world in one viewpoint and your mom sees it in a different viewpoint and you don't even have the mutual respect for your mom as an educator in your
Yeah.
home still being under her roof and her trying to raise you properly
Well,
essentially.
I think most families, even in previous generations, like there's always normally some sort of technological gap that we've had in the last like century between your parents and then their kids. But I think that this separation specifically, not even just parent and kid right now, like say Gen Z kid
Mhm.
and then their parents. But yeah, the 5 year gap. Like I have a younger sibling, you have a younger sibling, and even in just those 4 5 year difference, it's like another world.
Mhm.
And I'm actually very grateful that we were born sort of on the cusp where, yes, we have been able to have it and experience it and become technologically capable towards it. We were not, it's not the norm. I don't
Mhm.
think it's not like I don't know what the word for it is, but a social construct
Mhm.
that you have to abide by or else you're
Yeah.
genuinely not going to have friends.
But what about the fact that like okay, let's say like you and your sibling are 5 years apart and you guys both are on social media, etc. But because you kind of had this 5 year head point where you kind of weren't as brainwashed in a sense,
Hmm.
you think more clearly than they do. That's the thing that scares me the most, is the fact that you could end up being more kind of in line with, like, your parents and kinda, like, how you were brought up. Like, your
Yeah, more
parents might
millennial.
not millennial, not like not generation, but just like the fact that you respect what your parents teach you because you don't have a conflicting teacher. Like when you think about when you grow up, like what are the things that influence you the most? It's your parents and then what you learn at school in terms of morality or how you view the world or etc. And imagine like all of a sudden that's been the pattern for all of life. And of course like kids there's difference in generations, and kids grow up and they disagree with their parents on different things, and that's normal. But we're seeing this third educator that isn't school, that isn't parents, that isn't family, that's infiltrating in such a demanding way. And especially if your parents are at work, how are they supposed to know what you're being taught online, and how do they monitor that, and should they monitor that? And then you have two siblings in the household that are part of the same generation. They both could be Gen Z, because they're a few different years apart. They could see the world completely in different lenses. Like, that
Mhm, mhm.
terrifies me, and when I saw that on the TV, I was like, "Wow, I'm really grateful." Like
I am too, and I wouldn't even say that it's just infiltrating that third entity. I would say that it's completely taken over.
mhm.
Just, I don't know, even seeing these kids on TikTok and what kids are normally posting, it's I didn't even look like some of these girls that they look like at 11 years old.
Yeah.
It's it's pretty wild.
Well, if you think about it, like, okay, of course you saw, like, magazines and stuff, but
Yeah.
you weren't like it wasn't like you had the magazines all the time. Like, you didn't take it to school. It wasn't in your back pocket, all that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And so, even with your example with, like, beauty, you had other things in your life that influenced, like, what you cared about, like, what your
Mhm.
style was or whatever, and now
Mhm.
it's such, like, a monoculture in
Mhm.
every aspect, which is scary.
So I have some stats that I kind of did pull from the doc, and there are two that are really scary to me. One, sort of coincidentally in line with the introduction of the iPhone and then social media apps and whatever. U.S. suicide rates per a million girls have increased by 151% in the last 8 years,
Which is crazy.
which is almost 3 times as much. And then the US hospital admissions for non-fatal self-harm, which is obviously, it's a variety of things, but still not good. Girls ages 10 to 14 has increased by 280%
10 is young.
since 2010.
Yeah,
And then in
holy
girls
wow.
15 to 19, it increased by 162%.
Yeah,
So, long story short, you can't argue that,
yeah.
and I mean, this data has been traced from decades and decades, even before this rise in social media and technology, and um, to see a spike like that in such a short window of time is definitely like inarguable,
Mhm. No,
and
for
it's
sure.
sad.
No, it's really sad, and something that, I never thought about was the fact that there's only 2, I guess you could call it products, I don't know what the right word is, things out there in the world that you refer to the people who use the product as actual users, and that is social media and drugs.
Yeah,
Like, everything
you
else,
use drugs,
you're a
drug
customer. You're a
users.
customer of that. Like, I'm a customer of this restaurant. I'm a customer of this store.
Yeah, our consumer, our client,
Yeah.
our not our user.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't go to a restaurant and be like, "These are our users." Like,
Mhm.
that's so desensitized.
Yeah. Another
Yeah.
thing that I remember that they talked about, which I loved, was comparing it's thrown around a lot that social media is a tool,
Mhm.
but, like, what defines a tool? Like, what's the actual wholesome definition of a tool? Because when you think of tools, you think of, like, your dad's workbench and
A
saws and
bike.
hammers, a bike, for example, yeah. So why is it that social media is still referred to as a tool? And even if it is per se a tool in some sense, like what do you call someone who uses a tool? Is it a user?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I guess in some
users.
cases.
I just thought that that was a really cool analogy,
Yeah.
and obviously a bicycle has other physical and mental benefits than just obviously using it for as a
I
tool.
I think their main
Um,
point was that a bicycle isn't demanding of you. It's the purpose of a bicycle is to serve the person. You're not serving the bicycle. And with social media, that isn't the same relationship. Social media isn't there to serve you. And that goes back to my point about that you're a product and it's dehumanizing. It's not there for you. It's there for them.
yeah,
It's
like a
there
hammer isn't gonna send you notifications saying pick me up
yeah, like
and
I feel
use me for 5 hours.
no, literally, like, if you think about it, your phone and social media, it's like a needy, like, significant other that constantly just needs overly love and, like, hugs every 5
Yeah.
seconds. Like, it's not
And it's so
normal.
crazy how that is psychologically and what it does to our minds because is it the need to be on the same path as, like, other humans? Like, do we is that why we perceive it as that? Like, we need to be a part of it because it's technically other humans, but it's
Mm,
not. Like, your phone is an inanimate object, and these apps are just compiled of code. Like, that's all they are, but
mhm.
it's somehow this pathway to connect
With
the
humans.
entire world, and maybe that's why we feel the obligation. Maybe it's the FOMO thing, I'm not sure. But yeah, if you actually look at it from a material matter standpoint, it's not demanding of you. It's just what you think. It's like
Well,
all an illusion.
it's really the next step between, I think, before humans and machine become almost one entity, whether that's the Neuralink or whatever that ends up being, because right now, basically, the only thing that's standing from us and our device is a little bit of space because we hold it in our hand, and the fact that we use it to connect with other humans. But what happens when it's not just about connecting with other humans? What about if it's just about me connecting with the machine itself? That's very scary. And the fact that
Yeah,
if the Neuralink it's gonna be a reality, everyone should gear up for that at some point.
I'm not getting it.
There's gonna be a lot of benefits for people, especially that have Alzheimer's or that sort of thing, but eventually, the concept is that you and I will be able to communicate more efficiently by basically our brains talking to each other than the English language.
But think of 100 years ago, people who were alive trying to think of or predict a product like the iPhone, they would have thought, "Oh my gosh, that's forever away. How is that even possible?" But yeah, I think the Neuralink is just like that.
Well, it's because it's so exponential because it's the same like when you see this chart of technology like this in the last 10 years,
Yeah.
over a 100-year period,
Yeah.
there's no way that the Neuralink will not come in our lifetime because
Oh, it will.
like it's
It already is here.
yeah,
Like, they've already tested it
on pigs.
on
So
pigs. Okay, well, the next wave is a human, and then if that goes well, then it'll be another human,
yeah.
and then robots will start doing it, and then it's just gonna be like circumcision when you come out of the womb, then you then you just get it right then and there. That's
Or
terrifying.
in the womb, who knows?
But I think that yeah, that with these devices, I would consider the Neuralink a device. I would consider AI a device, but they also aren't just the device. I think that it's really hard to explain this type of technology because it's not just a tool. It's also a medium of manipulation. It's also a medium of mental confusion. It's also I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah.
But I think that yeah, Neuralink would be just like that. And speaking of AI, I was thinking social media is totally like that because in the documentary, they were explaining how, yes, there are algorithms that power everything, but even behind the algorithms, AI is literally
Yeah.
programming everything. So they kind of these companies run themselves. These platforms run themselves. When we post stuff, it's not necessarily some like I don't know, nerdy tech guy drinking Monster Energy drinks and filtering through, "Oh, Jordan just posted this." No, it's not that. It's just
It gets smarter and smarter.
it's yeah, it's running
The more you
itself.
give it, the smarter the algorithm gets, the smarter the AI gets, the more it seems to know you essentially, which is crazy. And I don't know, I think it's interesting how it's gonna like shift human behavior. you
Oh,
know?
totally.
And I
Yeah.
think you can already see that. I mean, they brought up I've seen examples from multiple sources where they say that romantic interaction has dropped, dating's dropped,
Oh,
driver's
yes.
license. Um, and the pandemic is making this worse because I mean, young kids, we're in that category. We don't have as many social interactions that we're normally used to. These last
Yeah.
6 months are not what we're normally exposed to. I mean, even in the
It's
classroom, like,
making it worse.
yeah, it's just, I don't
I
know.
found a word for it. So, most people know the term agoraphobia is the fear of places and situations that can make you feel anxious and
Hmm.
panic and whatever. So basically, it could be like a roller coaster. You feel trapped and you can't get out, and then you have a panic attack and that type of thing. Well, there's this term going around called instagoraphobia, which it's not the fear of going on
Mm,
Instagram. It's actually due to Instagram and due to social media platforms in general. We are having a more contradictory experience going out into the real world again.
interesting.
And the pandemic has definitely heightened that. And especially Gen Z, even before the pandemic. Like we talked about this the other night about how younger kids that maybe are still in high school or starting college just aren't as out in the world or
Taking
wanting to
risks.
be.
Yeah.
It doesn't give them the dopamine.
Yeah.
It's the phone that gives them that pleasure.
And why would you I mean, this yeah, bringing it back to the dopamine thing, why would you, go out in the world, take a risk, do something that might hurt you when you could get that same chemical reaction
If
to your
not
brain
more.
yeah, if not more, probably more on your phone, and you just can sit in the comfort of your bed. That
Yeah,
like
and you don't have to put real clothes on to date. All you have to do is just message some person on an app
yeah.
to pretty much anything that would be considered a necessity. You can even hell, you can even order food.
And if
It's
enough yeah,
like
no, if enough people get on this train and the pandemic is kind of pushing it in that direction because even people who are more extroverted or people who are a few years older or people that generally just like to go out in the world and take more risks right now you are restrained from doing that like how are you if bars are closed how are you supposed to go meet someone on a date if you unless the only option is to do a dating app. Well, what if you don't want to do a dating app? Then what are your alternatives? Like you have to now adapt to this thing that you've been trying to hold off on for so long. And now you're just
mhm,
giving more into this dopamine that's coming from your phone because there's
mhm,
no alternative option out in the world, which was either
mhm,
partying or being with friends or going to school and meeting people or your workplace. Like
mhm.
those don't exist anymore.
No, it's gone. And your point of why would I go out into the real world when I can have the same amount of happiness from just being on my phone, my computer, and sitting in my room? That's so important because I feel like, yeah, they feel fulfilled doing that. Plus, everybody else is.
Mhm.
So it's the feeling of like, yeah, I'm not weird. Like, I'm
No.
not weird because I'm doing this because
That's
everybody else is doing
that's
it.
the scary part is at least, like, before this, there was kind of a I don't know, like, there was a balance of it. There were some people that were more introverted or, like, wanted to stay in more, and there were some people who are more extrovert, and there was this healthy balance of that in society where, everyone has a different level of, like, risk tolerance or whatever, and
Mhm.
now that has been totally depleted, which is scary.
Yeah, and it's definitely a generational thing too. Like you can tell even just from 5 years that we are definitely more wanting to try to not enter that life. And maybe some of these younger Gen Z kids will come to that one day. Hopefully there's not some sort of event that happens or some massive cyber attack. I do think that the next serious seriously horrible, I don't know, terrorist attack event that happens, it's got to be tech. Like I know
Mhm.
it will. Like and that's what we thought with the pandemic. Like there's still people that are like, this was some sort of terrorist attack. It's
Yeah.
so hard to wrap your head around because in movies, that type of violence or harm is more like physical and
Yeah.
in the real world. But
I
no,
think
this
that
could
we've
be totally through
Mhm.
just our data and our lives that we have digitally.
Yeah. Well, I think it's deemed inefficient. I mean, not That's a bad word, but I think that a lot of countries, like, don't see it as really a good use of energy and then also human lives, which I think is a good thing to do, warfare with actual combat, you know, like, you really haven't seen that since, at least from our perspective in the US since, being in Afghanistan and that sort of thing, but
Yeah,
even
no,
something as
totally.
crazy as, World War II or World War One, where it was, like, such a huge global event, I don't think we're gonna see something like that unless it's cyber, like you
Yeah.
said.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen, but I don't know, I have a hunch.
Yeah.
So I found something cool, and it kinda relates to the whole puppeteer spectating thing. And there was this study done on a focus group with kids, which a lot of companies do that, especially with kids, because they're the most green and authentic versions of the humans that are on this. They don't have any ulterior motive.
Mhm.
That's why doing tests on them makes sense. Well, what they told the kids before they put them in this room was that they were going to be on the other side. Okay. And so like normally with a one way mirror, the kids see a mirror, they don't see a window,
Yeah.
they can't see the other side, and then the other people can see in. Well, they left, like there
Mhm.
were actually no adults watching them do whatever, and then when they thought that they were being watched, basically they were like on their best behavior ever, and then when they told them that they were there, um basically,
Wait, I'm
um,
confused.
so basically, there were adults that told them that they were gonna be on the other side,
Okay.
but they ended up not being on the other side.
Okay.
And so then when the kids found out that they weren't on the other side, they were, like, pissed off.
Mm.
So it was like this whole I watched a video on it, but moral of the story, the theme of this sort of setup is that maybe we act a certain way or not post certain things or not say certain things because are we influenced by the people that are viewing that information
Mhm.
or like filtering that information, like the people working at tech companies? Or are we not doing that because they're censoring us and making us feel that way? Like
Mm.
who's the controller of it?
Gotcha.
Like is it us feeling like we have to appease the people that are controlling the information?
Mhm.
Or do we feel like it's them setting these standards so that they're the controllers of it and we're just like abiding by it?
Mm. What do you think it is?
I think it's a combination of both,
Okay.
but I think as of right now, just with everything that's been going on this year, I'm getting a huge sense that it's the controllers and
Okay.
not necessarily us.
Okay.
Um, because yeah, these companies are businesses and they are not only trying to retain engagement, but like they said in the doc, they want controversy, they want drama, and they want issues to be present on their platforms to get us to come back and to be involved with the I don't know, feel like
Yeah.
we're involved in the drama.
Yeah.
And so that's why they like that. And so they kind of want to encourage it to keep those numbers that
Encourage
amount of
discourse.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's something that I mean, we've talked about that briefly on a few like other episodes, but I do think that that's something we should be aware of is the fact that assuming they are kind of more the controller of of the algorithms and of what you're seeing. Be aware of that because the person next to you isn't seeing the same things, and they do that
Yeah.
intentionally because they want to drive division. Because okay, when you see a post that makes you happy or you agree with the idea, what's
Mhm.
the most you're going to do? You're just going to like it or something. Maybe you'll just browse over it. But if you see something that you disagree with and riles you up and makes you upset the same way if someone
Mhm.
was coming at you and
Mhm.
attacking you, you're going to spend more time looking at that screen, replying, going to that person's profile, whatever. And basically, you have to remember that in dollar amounts, more screen time equals more money for potential advertisers. That's
Mhm.
that's that's the equation that we're looking at right now.
Mhm.
So there's no room on the internet for moderate voices or people who are in the middle because that doesn't help their cause when it comes to trying to be make money essentially.
Yeah.
And all the people in this documentary laid that out. And they said that's pretty much in their monetary platform and
Yeah.
their
They also
strategy.
said, like, across the board, fake news spreads 6 times faster than normal news,
Yeah.
than normal content flow. And
Yeah.
I don't even, maybe that's due to the algorithms, maybe that's due to the controllers
Or the
or the
users. Yeah.
users, yeah, but I thought that that was really incredible.
No, I thought that was really interesting, and it's like, okay, well, how do you fix that problem? I mean, I'm gonna take the more libertarian position. I don't know what your idea is, but I think it's like that's on you then. If you know that out of all the news you see, six times of it is gonna be fake news, that's on you, the consumer, to do the research and be questioning things.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Do you think that that should be kind of
I think
fact
no, I
checked,
think
or do you
that
think it
that's
should be on people to like dive into stuff to figure it
well,
out?
no, the average Joe is not gonna have any sort of control over what's actually on these platforms. So, yeah, it's up to us to develop better strategies for when we are exposed to this or that, to find the holes in it and realize, "Okay, that's probably not right." Or
Mhm.
have it incentivize you to then go and do external research to either confirm or deny that that article or tweet or whatever was actually true or false, because don't put it out and continue the flow chain
Mhm.
of that post or piece of content if if it's not true.
Yeah.
And that's what, yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
One of the guys, who was I think it was the past president of Pinterest and maybe something else. I don't know. I don't remember for certain, but one of the guys said that his biggest fear from the fallback of social media is literally civil war. That, like
Yes.
he said, what did he say? He
No,
said
the interviewer asked him
civil war,
what would
degrade
be
democracy, and the fall of the world economy. Those were his like three things,
wow.
which are huge. Those are huge implications. That's not even just like, oh, my mood now is off, which of course that matters, or my dopamine levels are off. Those are huge societal institutions that we're talking
Yeah.
about being potentially crumbled by an app on your
And
phone.
people always used to throw the term civil war around kind of as like an emphasis, that that could happen again. But I think from just events of this year, it has really shown us that can totally happen. Like,
Mhm.
it's not some joke anymore. Like, him saying that was not some form of emphasis. He was actually like making that prediction.
Yeah, which is very interesting.
Yeah. No, one of the guys in the doc also said that too. The interviewer asked him what would be the end game? Like, what would be the absolute, like, worst
Yeah,
outcome
that's
of
the
this
guy I'm
whole thing?
talking
Oh, that's
about.
the same
Yeah.
guy? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, if someone asked me that question, I don't know if I'd know. I'll think about that.
Yeah.
Probably something along the lines, but obviously I haven't worked at any of these companies. I don't know everything behind the
Mhm.
scenes. They probably held back a few in the doc too, but
Oh, for sure. I mean,
probably for legal reasons.
or I bet it was just too
Hard for
just
us to
too hard for us to hear. I mean, you are carrying the weight of a lot of things.
yeah.
Yeah, from that experience.
So one question that I actually kind of wanted to bring up to you, because I want you to help me figure it out.
Okay.
So maybe this can be like a help Jordan understand what she believes type of thing. But after analyzing the goods and the bads of social media, and obviously how big these big tech mega corporations are,
Mhm.
I guess my question is, what is the end, or like what can we do aside from just making documentaries of it?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe just continue talking about it, maybe
Um,
highlighting these differentiations.
yeah.
Like, I feel like there has to be something more that we can do that
You
isn't
feel so
making
powerless.
government take control of it.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
to be honest, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Because if the government gets control of this amount of technology, who the hell knows? Like, that is so scary.
No, it's really
Like, the
scary.
AI being able to control our minds, like, if there was one entity that could
At
control
least it's
all of those
divided up with
tools.
different companies right now. That's kind of like the saving grace a little bit.
Exactly,
At least like
exactly.
Twitter separate than Instagram, Facebook, which is separate from Snapchat. At least it's like there's it's a little divided.
And they all have different
Yeah.
programming,
I
different
don't
tools.
I don't know. This is like such a hard question to ask because when does a company get to the point where it needs to be broken up? Now, I agree with you. I don't think it should be taken over by the government. I don't know if it should be broken up or not. I don't know if it falls under antitrust stuff. I don't. That's such a hard question for me to answer, but I can say that I do think that it's on parents
Yeah.
right now
I was gonna say
because
that too.
I think it's on schools. And how is that so hard to do when all of our learning's online right now? But this is so critical. And the hardest part is that there's a social pressure once everyone has an iPhone or a smartphone in the class, like in your whole class, like you're the last one left. Like your
You
parents
don't wanna
have
be
to
the
give.
odd man out.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
don't want your kid to be weird or not have friends or not fit in, but we need parents to really band together and just be more on top of this and helping their kids learn how to manage it because this stuff isn't going away. You can't just be like, I don't ever want it. You can't take the Amish mindset and be like, I'm just not
Yeah.
going to like touch it because that's not realistic. If you want a job, like that's part of it. But
Mhm.
it's like any sort of vice, just learning how to manage it, but it's scary because it is so powerful. Maybe some age restrictions. I don't know.
I think that's a good point of, yes, it's obviously the parents' job to implement restrictions or convey to their kids what this whole thing is before they get too into it, but it's also the job of maybe the community of parents,
Mhm.
the parents of the kids that are in your kids class.
To create some sort of norm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if it's a norm and your kid doesn't feel outnumbered, then yeah, I think that might be bigger than anything
Yeah.
because it seems like with teenagers and
It's all
just
about
young
fitting in.
people, it's all about, yeah, you wanna be cool and do what's right, but yeah, with this, I feel like that's probably the only way that it could, like, actually happen and not make your kid be weird.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it's like if parents don't understand or even like schools don't understand why it's such a big deal, look at the science, look at the dopamine levels, look at this compared to any other addiction of any other drug or alcohol issue. It is all the same sort of chemical reaction and needs to
Yeah,
be taken seriously. I mean, there's age restrictions on every other sort of
yeah.
thing that you can consume.
No,
So,
it's we saw it with Jewel where everyone was like, "Oh, it's healthier, it's better and cooler, and it's the trend."
mhm.
Couple years later, it's getting a massive reform, like, everybody's against it, you
Yeah,
know?
as they probably should be, you
Which
know.
social media, this is a massive behemoth that it's not gonna be taken down overnight.
Mhm.
However, I do think that these conversations should not only be had parent to kid, but just in, like, communities of young people to maybe help get other types of perspectives into other, like, peers' heads that might not be as exposed to it.
Yeah, no,
Because if
for
we have
sure.
to start small and then go bigger, as opposed to, like, going big and, like, not even knowing what that would entail, I think that it definitely would take work and time, but that could have definitely a better outcome
Mhm.
than having, like, one person controlling it, one entity controlling it. I don't want that to happen,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
No, and maybe more social media groups emerging that are more community based or kind of long form discussions and are more about, you know, ideas versus just kind of a virtual conversation as opposed to Twitter or whatever where it's so short form. I think
Mhm.
that's also another maybe good
I
idea.
just thought about this because, in regards to our podcast, we definitely have social media accounts and we alert people from
Mhm.
of new episodes, whatever, through that. For companies that only rely on social media right now, do you think that that is a good route to go on just in case something happened and these
Mhm.
like platforms shut down or
Or if they kick you off.
exactly like isn't that
Yeah,
kind of
I
scary?
think that you probably it's hard because social media makes it so easy to get known and sell anything, especially TikTok's a whole nother giant. I was with two of my friends and they both at almost the same time are like, dude, TikTok. And one of them sold 40 shirts in like 3 hours off of TikTok. The other one sold a like $500 rug off of TikTok
So it's
within
like the
like
new Craigslist.
kind of, but
It's
basically, you
eBay.
can just make something look so cool and the algorithm just
Yeah.
takes it anywhere. Whereas at least, I mean, with Instagram, it's like, okay, it's really only your followers that get exposure to it because there isn't that resharing aspect. I mean, you can reshare stuff on your story, but people don't do that as much. It doesn't have that viral effect like Twitter or
The
uh
slot machine.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was crazy to me just thinking about
Yeah, I've
like, that's
seen
sad, that's, scary because then your business is reliant on a certain amount of sales volume of social media because getting people to come to your website is a lot harder without social media, you
Oh,
know?
totally, yeah. That's actually I mean, that's awesome that they were able to sell their
Mhm.
stuff and make money and get to people who were willing to buy it. I've seen some videos like that where people can use the effects and just make something look really unique and cool, and then,
Mhm.
like, everybody, like, blows it up,
Yeah.
which is so insane to
Mhm.
think about. I've personally never been, like, blown up like that
Yeah.
from posting anything, but I also don't have a TikTok, so I don't know. But I was thinking, like, just from, say, Facebook and Instagram. Also, Instagram today updated their entire app. I don't know if you saw it.
No.
So they now replace, like, you know, that heart button where you could see, like, your likes and followers and all of
Mhm.
that type of stuff? It's completely gone. It's not even a tab anymore. They put it in in your personal profile area where you can see, like, your notifications,
Mm.
but they made this new section called Shop, which it's even more, like, ad based, like, you know, the normal Instagram ads that you
Mhm.
see. It's kind of designed to show all of them in a scroll,
Who
and
would
it's
wanna do
literally a
that?
store. Like, how did Instagram turn into a complete e-commerce store? That's what they just
Interesting.
did.
It's crazy because, like, yeah, you can, like, tag products from your website on Instagram. It's so easy now.
Yeah. But
Um,
but before ads showing up every
yeah,
couple scrolls or whatever, I was totally fine with that
yeah,
because, I mean, they have to do it.
mhm.
They make money, whatever. But having an entire section dedicated to that
That's
is gonna
insane.
change the entire connector role of Instagram
Yeah,
because so many companies are gonna wanna do that because it's just people that go onto that shop section are gonna wanna shop.
yeah.
They're gonna wanna, like, look to buy products. So
Goodbye, department
yeah,
stores.
so it's not necessarily framing the products or the companies as ads, it's actually framing
As
them as we're
store.
selling yeah.
Well, think about this, like, okay, think about how inefficient shopping is right now. You gotta even if you're doing online shopping, which I mean, people from previous generations must look down at us and think that we're lazy. But even with online shopping, you have to go on like 4 different websites, compare your carts. Imagine if you can do that all in one shop, whatever, and it's already built on an algorithm of your taste, and it
Yeah.
combines all your favorite stores and all your favorite colors and whatever. Like that's so genius.
No, I mean, that is super it saves time from having
Yeah.
to, like, go and find stuff on your own. It gives it to you,
Mhm.
but it's also it could be bad if you
Yeah.
don't, like, see through it and
Mhm.
understand that it's yeah, they're marketing and advertising to you.
Mhm. For sure.
So, we should probably wrap up in a little bit, but I found some really interesting sort of data info as a comparison to understand, like, how much data is in the world right now.
Yeah.
And so obviously everybody knows like megabytes, gigabytes, and then terabytes,
Yeah.
probably like the biggest that I knew of. But
It gets bigger.
as it gets way bigger, as of right now, there are about 20 zettabytes.
What's a zettabyte?
Zettabyte, it's like
What?
5 or 6 stages up from terabyte. Like a huge, like
Okay.
probably an
Oh,
entire store or a barn would be a zettabyte
okay.
of like pillars of data storage.
Okay.
So we have 20 on Earth right now out of all of this that we already have. It's predicted that in 4 years before 2025 that this amount of data will increase to 175 zettabytes.
And we're at 4 right now?
No, we're at 20.
Okay, so we're at 20. We're gonna go to
We're
175.
going to go to 175 and basically to compare to a byte, a zettabyte is 1 sextillion bytes.
Ooh.
And this would fill 1,000 data centers or 20% of Manhattan. So think of all of Manhattan with the buildings
Get into the
every
real estate
building.
business for data centers. That's all I have to say.
Yes, exactly. So you can actually
Oh my
visualize
gosh.
those skyscrapers not being filled with apartments, but being filled with massive black cubes,
This is like
which
Blaze
is
Runner.
where the data is going and being stored. And so think of some sort of cyber terrorist attack. If we build this amount of data in a physical like I don't think a lot of people know, it's not just the cloud. It's not just an invisible place. Like it actually is stored
It
in.
lives somewhere.
Yes, like there is a physical hard drive of which a byte is stored on. And okay, last thing. If you attempted to download 175 zettabytes at the average current internet connection speed, it would take you 1.8 billion years to download it.
What?
If you enlisted every person in the world to help with that download, it would take 81 days.
Okay.
So basically, it's
I
just
don't even know how to like visualize
it's
that.
unfathomable. Basically, if you were to put 175 zettabytes on DVDs,
Okay.
like old plastic DVDs, the stack of DVDs would be as long enough to circle the earth 222 times.
Wow. That's huge.
I just thought that was fascinating. I love that.
No,
But it's
no,
terrifying.
That's great. No, it's terrifying, but it's the future, I guess. So we're gonna have to. It's not going away, people. So figure out your limitations and learn to live with it. That's all I can say.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed seeing our little studio and our faces. So
Yes, thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you learned maybe something.
yeah.
These types of topics always come up and we talk about it all the time, but it's because it kind of involves everything.
Yeah.
I think that this stuff overarches so many industries, whether it be business, science, just whatever. And
Human life.
we all relate to it because
Mhm.
we're all indulging in these sites. We all use these sites as a tool. We all are trying to stay connected, especially because of the pandemic. Like there's a lot of contradictions and balances, but I think it's good to not only praise these sites, but also highlight, okay, maybe that could be better. Maybe we could figure out a way to understand this more and this and that. So that's what we were trying to do today. And
we'll catch you next time. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.